Everyone's buying gold. Gold coins, gold bars, gold ETFs, gold everything. Guys on podcasts telling you to convert your 401k into shiny metal like it's 1849 and there's a rush happening. And when the collapse hits, a real collapse, not a stock market dip or a bad Tuesday, they're gonna starve with very shiny pockets. Here's what nobody in the gold bug community will tell you, because admitting it would destroy their business model overnight. In the first 90 days of any real societal breakdown, grid down, supply chains severed, government gone fishing, gold is practically worthless. You can't eat it, you can't drink it, you can't use it to stop an infection, and good luck finding someone who'll trade a can of beans for a shiny rock when their kid hasn't eaten in 3 days. During the siege of Leningrad, 900 days, nearly 1 million civilians dead from starvation alone. You know what people were trading for bread? Not gold rings, not jewelry, not family heirlooms passed down for generations, cigarette lighters, matches, a jar of salt, a bottle of iodine, items you could buy today for pocket change. The gold sat in drawers collecting dust while people froze to death 10 feet away from it. Because gold doesn't burn. Gold doesn't disinfect a wound. Gold doesn't purify a liter of river water so your kid doesn't die of dysentery. Gold is a promise. And in a collapse, promises are the first currency to fail. Today, I'm going to show you 7 items, combined cost under 50 bucks. Every single one has been battle-tested in real collapses across 4 continents and 100 years of history. These aren't theoretical. These aren't some prepper fantasy Pinterest board. These are historically verified barter currencies that turned ordinary people into the most valuable person on their block. And at the end, I'll give you the one barter rule that can literally save your life. Break it, and you might not survive the trade. If you're new here, I'm your favorite trash panda, and I turn chaos into checklists. Subscribe if you want to be the one people come to when it all falls apart, not the one doing the begging. Let's start with number 7 and work our way up to the single most valuable barter item in collapse history. 7. The infinite franchise number 7, and this one's a sleeper. Seed packets. Yeah, the $2 ones hanging next to the garden gloves at your hardware store. A single packet of heirloom tomato seeds contains roughly 25 to 30 seeds. Each seed, under halfway decent conditions, can produce a plant yielding 10 to 20 pounds of tomatoes per season. That's potentially 500 pounds of food from a $2 packet. Show me a stock that returns 250 times your investment in one growing season. During the Great Depression, victory gardens weren't patriotic propaganda. They were survival infrastructure. By 1943, those backyard plots were producing 40% of all vegetables consumed in the entire United States. 40%. Not from industrial farms, from regular people who figured out that the grocery store isn't a law of nature. But here's a more recent example that should hit harder. When Cuba entered the special period after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and overnight, an entire nation lost its food supply chain, its fuel imports, its fertilizer, everything. Urban farming became the difference between life and mass starvation. Havana went from 0 urban gardens to producing over 90% of its fresh produce within city limits. People were growing food on rooftops, in parking lots, in old tire stacks, in bathtubs filled with soil. And the people who had seeds, they didn't just eat, they became the most connected, most protected people in their neighborhoods. Neighbors brought them favors, local groups offered security, because they weren't trading a product. They were trading the ability to produce food indefinitely. That's not a commodity, that's a franchise. That's a permanent income stream from a $2 investment. Now here's the detail everyone gets wrong, and getting it wrong turns your food strategy into an expensive gardening disappointment. You need heirloom seeds, not hybrid. Hybrids, the F1 varieties, won't breed true. You plant them, they grow, but the seeds from that harvest? Genetic lottery. Could be anything. Heirloom seeds reproduce faithfully, generation after generation. One packet becomes an infinite food source. Stock, cool, dry, dark. Mylar bags with silica gel packets. Most vegetable seeds stay viable 3 to 5 years. Some, tomatoes, peppers, can push 7 to 10 with proper storage. Barter value, moderate in week 1. Nobody's thinking about gardens while raiding the canned goods aisle. But after month 3, when people realize canned food runs out but gardens don't, seed holders become community kingmakers. The irony? The most valuable thing in a post-collapse world costs less than your morning coffee. But sure, keep buying gold coins. I'm sure the tomato plants will accept Visa. Seeds take months to pay off. Number 6, it pays off in the first hour. 6, the pharmacy that fits in a shoebox number 6. Over-the-counter medicine and basic first aid. And I need you to really hear this next part. In a world without pharmacies, a simple infected cut, the kind you'd slap a Band-Aid on and forget, becomes a death sentence. Before antibiotics, the mortality rate for basic skin infections was between 10 and 30%. A paper cut, a scraped knee, a blister that popped wrong. Any of those could kill you. After Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico in 2017, the island's medical infrastructure didn't just get damaged, it evaporated. Pharmacies were either destroyed or emptied within days. Hospitals ran on backup generators until the diesel ran out, and then they ran on nothing. For months, not days, months, people with basic medical supplies became de facto community medics. A single bottle of ibuprofen was being split into individual pills and traded for meals. Not the bottle. Individual pills. One pill, one meal. That's how fast boring medicine becomes priceless when the system that makes it boring disappears. During the 2020 Lebanon economic collapse, when the currency lost 95% of its value almost overnight, and a country that had functioning hospitals in January was rationing electricity by June, pharmacies became battlegrounds. Not for opioids. For basic ibuprofen, antibiotics, and bandages. The boring stuff. The stuff nobody thinks about until they need it. And by then, there's a line around the block and the shelves are already bare. Here's your medical barter starter kit. Total cost, under 15 bucks. Ibuprofen, pain, fever, inflammation. Acetaminophen, same targets, different mechanism, stock both. Diphenhydramine, that's Benadryl, allergic reactions, sleep aid. Triple antibiotic ointment, infection prevention on any open wound. Butterfly bandages and adhesive sutures when stitches aren't available. Electrolyte packets, dehydration kills faster than hunger. Rotate stock every 18 months. Barter value, immediate and permanent. Medicine doesn't lose trade value over time, it gains it. Every day without resupply, your Tylenol becomes worth more. Right now, you can buy 500 ibuprofen tablets at Costco for about 8 bucks. In a collapse, each tablet could be worth a meal. That's a 500-to-1 return. Wall Street would commit crimes for those numbers. Medicine keeps people alive. But number 5, it keeps people human. 5. The dignity trade, number 5. Hygiene products, soap, toothpaste. Feminine hygiene products, toilet paper, razors. Here's what the tactical gear preppers never talk about. The psychological collapse that happens when people can't maintain basic hygiene. It's not vanity, it's the last thread connecting you to your identity as a civilized human being. Cut that thread, and mental health spirals faster than food supplies. After the 2010 Haiti earthquake, international relief studies documented something that surprised almost every aid organization on the ground. When survivors were surveyed about their most urgent needs after the initial 72-hour crisis passed, hygiene products consistently ranked alongside food and water, not below, alongside. People who hadn't been able to wash in weeks were showing severe psychological deterioration, depression, withdrawal, complete loss of motivation to survive. The UN Refugee Agency now treats hygiene kits as a Tier 1 priority alongside food rations, because they learned the hard way that humans without dignity stop fighting to live. That's not a theory. That's operational policy born from watching people give up. During Syria's civil war, in besieged areas like eastern Ghouta where supplies were strangled for months at a time, a single bar of soap was documented trading at the equivalent of a full day's wages. Feminine hygiene products? Essentially priceless. Women were improvising with whatever fabric they could find. That wasn't a century ago. That was 2016. In a country that 10 years earlier had shopping malls and universities and a functioning middle class. Collapse doesn't announce itself with a warning label. It just arrives. This is the easiest barter inventory to build. Just buy one extra every shopping trip. Bar soap lasts longer than liquid, works for hands, body, and laundry. Travel-size toiletries, perfect individual barter units. Feminine hygiene products. Stock these even if you don't need them personally. Top 3 barter item in every documented collapse. Safety razors with extra blades. Disposables run out, safety razors don't. Barter value? Consistently high, immediately after collapse, and emotionally charged, which means people will overpay. When someone hasn't brushed their teeth in 2 weeks, they'll trade almost anything for a tube of toothpaste. You're not selling hygiene, you're selling dignity. Dignity has no ceiling price. Imagine explaining to your grandkids that you survived the collapse because you had a suitcase full of hotel shampoos. That's peak raccoon energy. All right, seeds, medicine, hygiene, the foundation. But we're about to enter the top 4, And this is where the barter math gets genuinely insane. 4. The 5,000-year currency number 4. Salt and spices. I know that sounds boring. Hear me out. Salt has been currency for over 5,000 years. The word salary comes from the Latin salarium, sea salt money. Roman soldiers were partially paid in salt. Wars were fought over it. Kingdoms rose and fell over who controlled the salt routes. It's arguably the oldest currency in human civilization, and the reason hasn't changed. Salt isn't just flavor, it's survival technology. Preservation. Before refrigeration, salt was the only way to keep meat edible for months. Electrolyte balance. Your body literally cannot function without sodium. Wound cleaning. Saline solution is a basic medical tool. Food production. From cheese to bread, salt is a core ingredient. Here's one most people have never heard. In post-World War II Germany, during the years of occupation before the Deutschmark was introduced in 1948, the black market ran on a handful of currencies. American cigarettes were the famous one, but salt, basic table salt, was traded at rates that would make your head spin. In the winter of 1946, a kilogram of salt could buy you a week's ration of bread in the Soviet occupation zone. Not because salt was rare in Germany, Germany had salt mines, but because distribution networks had completely collapsed, and the salt that existed was controlled by whoever had the foresight to stockpile it before the bombs stopped falling. Access beat abundance. That's the lesson that applies to every item on this list. Spices are the luxury multiplier. Hot sauce, pepper, garlic powder, these make terrible food edible. When you've been eating plain rice for 3 weeks, someone with hot sauce is basically a war hero. Morale isn't a luxury in survival. Morale is what keeps you functional. A 25-pound bag of iodized salt from Costco costs about $5. Properly stored, salt literally never expires. It's a mineral. It can't go bad. Repackage into 1-cup Ziploc portions. That's about 50 individual barter units from a $5 investment. You know what's beautiful about salt? It's so boring nobody thinks to stockpile it. Everyone's buying tactical tomahawks and night vision goggles, and I'm in the Costco aisle with a cart full of Mortons going, yeah, I'll be the one still eating in 6 months. Salt keeps you alive. Number 3 keeps you... Let's just say it has more uses than you think. 3. The liquid multi-tool number 3. Miniature liquor bottles. The little airplane bottles. 50 milliliters each, about $1 a piece, and they might be the single most versatile barter item in existence. Because alcohol isn't just a drink, it's a disinfectant. A painkiller, a sleep aid, a wound cleaner, a fire starter, a social lubricant for tense negotiations, a preservative for herbal tinctures. And when everything has gone sideways, it's the thing that makes a terrible day slightly less terrible. During the Greek economic crisis of 2012 to 2015, when ATMs were limited to €60 daily withdrawals, banks shuttered for weeks, and entire neighborhoods pivoted to improvised barter networks because cash simply wasn't available. Alcohol became one of the most reliable mediums of exchange. Not because Greeks are heavy drinkers. Because alcohol is universally recognized as having value, it doesn't spoil, and it serves multiple survival purposes beyond recreation. Community barter markets that sprang up across Athens and Thessaloniki documented alcohol as consistently in the top 5 most traded categories, right alongside olive oil and medicine. Go further back. During the Soviet collapse of 1991, when the ruble became wallpaper overnight and an entire superpower's economy disintegrated in months, vodka functioned as a parallel currency across Russia for nearly a decade. Factory workers were sometimes literally paid in vodka because it held value better than the national currency. Entire rural economies ran on it. Plumbers, electricians, doctors. Services were rendered in exchange for bottles. That's not a joke. That's documented economic history from the largest country on Earth. When your money is worthless, a bottle of spirits is a 100-proof savings account. Why miniature specifically? Portion control. You never crack a full bottle for a trade. Variety. Stock vodka for medical use, whiskey for drinking, high proof for fire starting. Shelf life. Sealed miniatures last indefinitely. Discretion. They're small, silent, easy to conceal. You don't want people knowing you have a liquor store in your basement. Barter value. Universally high. Addiction is a powerful market force. I'm not being cynical. I'm being honest about human psychology under extreme stress. People will trade food for alcohol. It's documented in every collapse scenario ever studied. Before you judge, in a world without anesthesia, a shot of whiskey before someone pulls a tooth with pliers isn't a luxury. It's the closest thing to medical care that exists. I'm not encouraging drinking. I'm encouraging understanding that alcohol is a multi-tool that happens to be drinkable. We're in the top 2. And number 2 is something so cheap and so overlooked that it genuinely angers me. $3 between you and cholera. Number 2, water purification tablets. And the math on these should make you furious. 50 tablets, $3. Each tablet purifies 1 liter. That's 50 liters of confirmed safe drinking water for the price of a gas station coffee. Now flip it. Without clean water, the average person develops waterborne illness symptoms within 48 hours. Cholera can kill a healthy adult in 12 hours through dehydration. 12 hours. After Cyclone Idai hit Mozambique in March 2019, flooding contaminated the water supply for over 1.5 million people across 3 countries simultaneously. Within 2 weeks, cholera cases surged past 1,000. Within a month, over 5,000 confirmed cases. The international response was massive. But here's what nobody talks about: in the gap between disaster and aid arrival. And that gap is always longer than governments promise, always. The people who survived best were the ones who had any form of water purification, tablets, filters, even just the knowledge of proper boiling protocols and how long to maintain a rolling boil at their altitude. Those people didn't get sick. Their kids didn't get sick. And their neighbors started showing up asking for help. Clean water went from background assumption to the single most valuable commodity in the region literally overnight. Same pattern after the 2015 Nepal earthquake. Same after Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines in 2013, when storm surge contaminated freshwater sources across entire islands. Same after every single infrastructure collapse in recorded history. The pattern is so consistent, it's basically a law of physics. Clean water becomes the most critical survival resource within 72 hours of infrastructure failure, not food. The human body survives weeks without food while still functioning, not shelter. You can improvise shelter from almost anything. Water. 3 days without it and your organs start shutting down. There's no improvising water purity. You either have the means to make it safe, or you're gambling with your life every single time you take a sip. 3-tier water strategy. Tier 1, immediate, purification tablets. Light, cheap, 0 skill required. This is your barter stock and personal supply. Buy at least 200, $12. Tier 2, medium term. A gravity-fed filter like a Berkey or Sawyer for household volume. Tier 3, permanent. Knowledge. Build a charcoal filter from found materials. No boiling protocols. Knowledge is the one supply that can't be looted. Barter value? In the first week, moderate. After the first cholera scare, and it always comes through the roof. Clean water goes from nice to have to I'll trade you my car faster than any other resource. $3. People spend more on a pumpkin spice latte. If you don't have water purification right now, close this video, go to Amazon, order some, come back. I'll wait. Good. Now let's talk about the one item that changes everything. 1. The king of collapse, number 1. The undisputed king of collapse barter. The single most traded item in every documented societal breakdown of the last century. A disposable lighter. A $1 BIC lighter. The most humble, boring, overlooked object in your junk drawer. And in a collapse, it's worth more than its weight in gold. Literally. Here's a story most people have never heard. During the North Korean famine of the 1990s, known as the Arduous March, where an estimated 2 to 3 million people died of starvation, the state economy essentially ceased to function. Official shops had nothing on the shelves. Ration cards were worthless paper. Black markets called jangmadang became the real economy, the only economy. And in the northern border regions especially, where winters hit -20°C and firewood was being stripped from every hillside within walking distance, the ability to make fire wasn't a convenience. It was the dividing line between living and dying before morning. Defector testimony collected by South Korean researchers and human rights organizations documents lighters and matches as consistently among the highest value trade items in these markets, exchanged for food, medicine, and labor at rates that dwarfed their original cost by orders of magnitude. A single working lighter could feed a family for days. Why? Because fire is the master resource. Fire purifies water. Fire cooks food. And cooking kills the pathogens that turn a scavenged meal into a death sentence. Fire provides warmth. Fire is light in darkness. Fire is a signal. Fire is a weapon. And fire is morale, something deep in the human brain, hardwired from 100,000 years of evolution, calms down around a flame. Communities form around fires. Hope survives. The math should send you to Costco immediately. A BIC lighter costs $1.50. It produces approximately 3,000 ignitions. Buy a 10-pack for $12. That's 30,000 potential fires. Stock 50 lighters, $60 total, and you have a post-collapse bank account. Matches work too, but lighters are superior for 3 reasons. They function in wind, they're self-contained, and they work when wet after drying. Matches? One damp day and they're expensive cardboard. Storage. BIC lighters last 7 to 10 years if you keep them away from heat and sunlight. The butane doesn't evaporate if the seal is intact. Pro move. Stock both lighters and ferrocerium rods. Lighters are your barter currency. What you trade. Ferro rods are your personal fire insurance. They work when lighters fail, and you never trade away your ferro rod. That's your survival tool. The lighters are business inventory. I've spent months researching barter economies in collapsed societies. And if there's one universal truth, it's this. The person who controls fire controls everything. You don't need a bunker, you don't need an arsenal, you need a drawer full of BIC lighters and the good sense to trade them wisely. Which brings us to the part that might save your life. The rules of the wasteland market. You now have your collapse portfolio. 7 items under $50 total. But none of it matters if you don't understand the rules of post-collapse trading. Because bad trades don't just cost you supplies, they can cost you your life. Rule 1. Never trade from your home. Always use a neutral location, a parking lot, an intersection, any public space. The moment someone knows where your supplies are stored, you become a target. It doesn't matter how friendly the trade was. It doesn't matter if they seemed trustworthy. Desperation rewrites people's moral code faster than you think. The nicest person on your block becomes unpredictable when their family hasn't eaten in 4 days. Rule 2. Never reveal your full inventory. Trade from a separate barter bag, a small pre-packed kit that looks like everything you have. Bring exactly what you plan to trade and nothing more. If someone asks what else you've got, the answer is always, this is it. The appearance of scarcity protects you 2 ways. It prevents you from becoming a robbery target, and it strengthens your negotiating position. Nobody gives you a good deal if they think you have a warehouse full of supplies back home. Rule 3. Always bring a partner. One trades, one watches. No exceptions. One person handles the negotiation. The other person stays back, stays alert, and watches everything. The trader, the environment, anyone approaching, anyone watching from a distance. The #1 security failure in documented collapse trading is being alone. 2 people changes the math entirely. Rule 4. Start high, settle in the middle. Collapse barter follows the same psychology as any negotiation, a flea market, a car dealership, a salary discussion. The first offer is never the real offer. If your lighter is worth a week of bread, open by asking for 2 weeks. Let them counter. Meet in the middle. Both sides feel like they won. That's how you build repeat customers, and in a collapse, repeat customers are worth more than one good deal. Rule 5. Read the room. If someone seems too aggressive, too interested in what else you have, too eager to know where you live, walk away. No trade is worth an ambush tomorrow. And now, the deadly mistake. The one rule people break out of ego, machismo, or sheer stupidity. Never. Trade. Weapons. I don't care if they're offering a month of food for a handgun. The weapon you trade today could be pointed at you tomorrow. You are literally arming someone whose desperation level you've already confirmed is extreme. That's not a trade. That's a countdown. This is documented in collapse after collapse. After the fall of Libya in 2011, weapons that were traded or sold from Gaddafi-era stockpiles didn't just change hands. They fueled conflicts across 3 countries for a decade. Scale that down to your neighborhood, and the principle is identical. Every weapon you trade away is a threat you've created with your own hands. Ammunition falls in the same category. Every round you trade is a round that could be used against you. The math isn't complicated. The temptation is. Resist it. The raccoon's last word. 7 items under $50. Every single one historically proven. Number 7. Heirloom seeds, the infinite food source. 6. OTC medicine, when band-aids become treasure. 5. Hygiene products, humanity's last thread. 4. Salt and spices, the 5,000-year currency. 3. Miniature alcohol, the multi-tool you can drink. 2. Water purification, $3 between you and cholera. And number 1. Disposable lighters, because whoever controls fire controls everything. Now, I mentioned dangerous survival products. If you made it this far, you're not average. You're the type who prepares while everyone else sleeps. Hit subscribe. The Trash Panda has more secrets, and they're only getting darker. Stay sharp, stay stocked, stay alive.